You've heard from Trevor talk about some of the people who have helped turn his life around. Now let's hear from people involved with helping military service members with brain injury and PTSD. They operate in different organizations, but with a singular purpose of helping veterans.
A lot of times in the combat situation, people have so much adrenaline that they don't even realize that they're hurt.
There may not be any exterior wounds. It could just be that head injury that's internal. So just to look at someone from afar, you just can't see it. It's when you start to talk to them and you start to see some of their actions that may be abnormal to what they had done in the past, where people start to see that that PTSD or TBI is there.
From our perspective, PTSD and mild TBI have a lot of symptoms that are very similar and overlap a great deal. What we like to do is spend a lot of time being able to sort of look at those complaints and try to begin to figure out what we can do to lessen some of those symptoms until we can get at what the problem really is.
Especially with PTSD and traumatic brain injury, there are certain issues, certain symptoms that were really holding them back here in the classroom especially, and their social life as well. So once that has a name to it, it really helps them out, and then they can start from there and work on tools to help relieve those type of stresses.
Sometimes they just need a little bit of confidence. They just need to know that what they're having is not unusual and that it does get better. And after we've seen them and provided them with information, sometimes we see a remarkable transformation, that they have this reassurance that what's happening to them is not unusual.
Just use the tools, use your resources. There's other veterans out there, ask them what they did, look for advice, and adapt and overcome.
It can save your family, it can save your life in many cases, and so get the care, get the treatment, don't be 10 foot and bulletproof. It's your life, so get it taken care of.
The panel you will hear from represents an impressive breadth of background and experience. Each has resources to help veterans struggling to overcome brain injury and PTSD. I'm pleased to introduce Ms. Bonnie Bessler, Nebraska National Guard veteran of 26 years and currently the Transition Assistance Advisor for the Nebraska National Guard. Dr. Jill Champley, speech pathologist, right, with the Polytrauma Support Clinic at the Veterans Affairs Hospital in Omaha. And Mr. Travis Carr, Marine Corps veteran and veteran student coordinator for the Central Community College System of Nebraska. So what we have here is kind of a lineup. We've kind of got the referral system here in a way, the treatment area here, and I guess the reintegration piece here that happens to our returning service members in the future. Bonnie, can you speak to some of the services and so forth that you provide as a coordinator?
Sure. One of my jobs that I do is work with our returning service members when they return from deployment and ensure that they're connected to their resources and to their benefits, specifically the VA, Department of Labor, and any other services that someone might need. I ensure that they and their family know who they can call, that very specific phone number, so they're not calling a 1-800 no one's going to answer type of phone number. They can get the help that they need directly.
And we hear people always wanting to help. Is there plenty of help out there? Does there need to be more help? What kind of a dossier do you have to work with our returning veterans with?
There is a lot of help. And matter of fact, sometimes that's the confusion for the returning veteran and their family, is because there is so much out there. There are so many organizations that want to help and who can help, but the service member and their family just don't know where to return or where to turn to get that initial connection.
So a call to you can often kind of get them going in a more correct direction instead of fishing in many different areas, perhaps.
That's correct.
Okay. So mostly veterans that are service members themselves that call you, or do family members get involved also?
Often I get phone calls from family members.
That the veteran may or may not know about that? Or?
Right. That the family member may have heard something in one of the reunion trainings that has been given to them before the service member returns, that they've heard about a resource or someone that they can get some help from. And often they'll ask, who was that? I need to have some more information on TRICARE, or I need to have some more information about where my husband or my son or daughter needs to go when they return from to the VA, that type of thing.
Okay. And so, Jill, we've got the referral. They're turning you over for treatment, and you're going to have to explain some things here. What kind of services, what kind of treatments, what kind of activities do you provide for our service members that come to you for help?
Well, of course, it depends on which part of the VA they come into. In the Polytrauma Support Clinic where I work, we see veterans with a variety of different complaints, but we put them through a clinic model where they see a number of different providers. For example, our physical medicine doctor, a case manager, usually the speech pathologist, an occupational therapist, sometimes our neuropsychologist can be involved. We try to look at the veteran, visit with them about all of the issues that they're having so that we can work as a team then, including the veteran and possibly their family or their other significant others that participate, and come up with a plan that will address the issues that they're having.
So it's not just one size fits all, many different approaches. And in listening to Trevor, he talked about where some items worked and yet other items worked better. And so is that what you see then in almost every situation?
It's really, really hard to know sometimes what is the cause of the concerns that the veteran is having. And so often it is a combination of factors that are causing these concerns, and sometimes at different points in the process. As was mentioned earlier, it's a process of recovery, and so sometimes at different points, different strategies might be more or less effective.
And family, support groups, neighbors, friends, community, do those help when they're in treatment?
Again, it's a very individual thing that I think certainly family support is very important, but friends and other veterans are equally as important. Sometimes people hear information better at different times depending on where they are in their process, and who it comes from is not always the same. So all of those different people that are involved in someone's life can play a huge role.
So Travis, in many cases, if the referrals and the treatments are successful, at some point in time, our returning service members are going to perhaps want to return to school, to set themselves on a course to a better education, a better life, and this is where you come in, right?
That's exactly right. This is where I come in. If they haven't been through that process, I can help them start out in that process. But if we look at school, it really helps out with the transition and reintegration.
Helps them with what? Focus, a reason to live. What kind of things do you see in coming out of a veteran once they're able to get into school?
Well, once they get able to get back into school, there's a couple barriers where they face. They don't feel the same as other students. A lot of times, a long break since they've been to school last. A lot of times, especially with deployments, they haven't been around technology as we use in the classrooms. So almost school becomes a barrier for them, and it becomes challenging. But really to have another resource, veterans resources, and other veterans on campus to communicate with, to socialize with, that helps out in the reintegration.
So in the case of Trevor, he, I think, left high school in 2002, went to the Marines. It's almost 8-9 years later before he's actually entering school. So he's sitting in class with kids, if you will, that are 18, 19 years old. His life experiences have obviously been quite different than theirs. And so thus you try to work with the veterans as a group, connect them together, help them support each other as they move along?
That's absolutely right. It is a struggle, and not only for the students in the classroom, but also for our instructors and teachers to kind of understand those barriers as well. It really helps out to have other veterans there on campus and to have the resources available for them.
Okay. Well, one thing Trevor mentioned was when he left the service, there really wasn't much in terms of screening for him to identify his condition. And I can say that I know the military, Department of Defense, has done a lot to improve their screening for these kinds of conditions. But from your angles, from a referral to treatment to reintegration, are there still resources that you think are needed out there to help complete this process of reintegration for our service members? Things that you wish you had that you don't currently have?
Sometimes when these service members get referred because they have some signs that they maybe have a brain injury or maybe they have some PTSD, to get them to go seek additional care, like at the VA, that's a burden because maybe they are already in school, maybe they're working, their funds may be limited. How do I get there? I don't have time to go all day. So we need to be more creative and more inventive on how we can take care of those types of appointments or maybe help that service member with the transportation to get there.
Okay. So they're basically rebuilding a life, and they've got a lot of things going on at any one time. What about in the medical community, Jill?
Well, it's interesting that you bring that up. I think in the time that I've been with the VA, we've made tremendous changes, even just in the last few years. But one of the things that we're getting much more involved in recently is the whole area of telehealth, where we are able to serve veterans in various parts of the state without causing such a burden. There are times still when we like to have that face-to-face, and I would tell you that that's part of who I am. I need to be close and be able to see your face, but this whole issue of telehealth has really blossomed recently, and I think particularly in Nebraska when we're spread so far apart.
And the tyranny of distance definitely affects you, doesn't it, Travis? You've got Columbus, Grand Island, and Hastings that you have to take care of, all the veterans in those locations, right?
Yes,
so you've got you're obviously spread pretty thin.
That's right.
So are you looking to the future to see what might be out there to help you do your job more effectively as we move ahead?
Yes, definitely. I'm looking all these resources that we've been talking about, really introducing them on campus, where we have the VA hospital come in and stay on campus for a day where students can talk to them. We're working with other programs to do the distant learning and the telehealth and to really connect those students with these resources and be a continuing influence for them.
Good. Thanks, Travis. For troops returning from the war, the battle is not yet over. As you've seen in this program, many face a struggle to identify and treat brain injury and post-traumatic stress disorder. Most are diagnosed early and treated at Department of Defense medical facilities and subsequently at the Department of Veterans Affairs. Others are not so fortunate. Their symptoms do not appear until later. There's a healing on the home front. Resources are available in Nebraska for those suffering from the lingering effects from World War Zone experiences. The challenges we face as caring Nebraskans is connecting current and former military members to those resources. And this is where you can help. Be observant of those in your circles who are returning service members or families of veterans. If you see situations similar to the stories in this program, encourage them to seek help through the resources being listed. Many military veterans in Nebraska serve to protect our freedom. We can help them by supporting returning service members and connecting them to programs and services that allow them to heal. Let's help them to heal on the home front.